The lights in Sector 7 flickered again, casting long shadows across the metal walls of the New Horizon. Carlos Vega wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked on the broken air filter. At 78 years old, his hands moved slower than they used to, but they were steady. He had been fixing things on this ship for over 40 years. The New Horizon was huge. It carried 50,000 people through space, heading toward a new world that would take another 10 years to reach. Carlos had been born on Earth, but his children and grandchildren knew only this ship. The metal walls and humming machines were their whole world. Carlos heard boots on the floor behind him. He did not look up from his work. The air filter was important. If it broke completely, the people in this section would have trouble breathing. "What are you doing here, old man?" Carlos turned around slowly. Deputy Security Chief Jake Morrison stood in the doorway. Morrison was tall and strong, with short brown hair and cold blue eyes. He wore the black uniform of ship security. Carlos had seen Morrison before, but they had never talked much. "I am fixing the air filter," Carlos said in his quiet voice. His English still carried the sounds of his childhood in Mexico, even after all these years in space. "It broke this morning. People need clean air." Morrison stepped closer. His face showed anger and disgust. "You people are always breaking things. Then you act like heroes when you fix what you broke." Carlos did not understand. He had not broken anything. The air filter was old, like everything else on the ship. Things broke all the time. That was why they needed people like him to fix them. "I did not break it," Carlos said. "I am just fixing it." "Sure you are," Morrison said. His voice was full of hate. "You and your kind have been nothing but trouble since we left Earth. Taking up space, using our resources, making more little versions of yourselves." Carlos felt confused and hurt. He had worked hard his whole life. He had helped build parts of this ship before they left Earth. He had fixed countless broken machines during their long journey. His family followed all the rules. They were good people. "I do not understand," Carlos said. "I work hard. My family works hard. We help everyone on the ship." Morrison laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Help? You take food from real humans. You live in quarters that should go to people who matter. You breed like rats and teach your kids to speak that foreign language." Other people were watching now. Lisa Park, a young officer who worked in navigation, had stopped in the hallway. She looked worried. Two maintenance workers from the next section had also stopped to see what was happening. Carlos tried to stay calm. He had heard words like this before, but never from someone in security. Morrison had power on the ship. He could make trouble for Carlos and his family. "I have lived on this ship for 40 years, Carlos said. "I was born on Earth just like you. My children were born here in space. This ship is their home too." "This ship belongs to humans," Morrison said, stepping even closer. "Real humans, not whatever you are." Carlos felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. He was old and small. Morrison was young and strong. Fighting would only make things worse. "I am human," Carlos said quietly. "We are all human here." Morrison's face turned red with rage. "You are not human. You are garbage. You are taking up space that belongs to my people." The deputy reached out and shoved Carlos hard in the chest. The old man stumbled backward and hit the wall. His tools scattered across the floor with loud clanging sounds. Lisa Park gasped. "Stop it," she called out. "What are you doing?" Morrison ignored her. He grabbed Carlos by the shirt and lifted him up. Carlos was light, and Morrison was strong. The old man's feet barely touched the ground. "I should throw you out an airlock," Morrison said through clenched teeth. "Save food and air for people who deserve it." Carlos tried to speak, but Morrison shook him hard. The old man's head snapped back and forth. His vision became blurry. "Please," Carlos whispered. "I have done nothing wrong." Morrison threw Carlos to the floor. The old man hit the metal surface hard. Pain shot through his ribs and back. He tried to get up, but Morrison kicked him in the stomach. Carlos curled up in a ball, trying to protect himself. "Stay down, old man," Morrison said. "This is what happens when you people forget your place." Morrison kicked Carlos again, this time in the ribs. Carlos heard something crack. Bright pain filled his chest, and he could not breathe properly. Lisa Park was shouting into her communication device, calling for help. The maintenance workers looked scared but angry. They wanted to help Carlos, but Morrison was security. He had a weapon on his belt and the authority to arrest anyone who interfered. Morrison raised his boot to kick Carlos again, but stopped when he heard running footsteps in the hallway. Other security officers were coming. Morrison stepped back and tried to look calm. "This man was sabotaging life support equipment," Morrison announced loudly. "I caught him in the act." Carlos tried to speak to say this was not true, but he could barely breathe. Blood filled his mouth. Everything hurt. "Lisa." Park spoke up, her voice shaking with anger. "That is a lie. Carlos was fixing the air filter. I saw everything. You attacked an old man for no reason." Morrison glared at her. "You do not know what you saw, officer. This is a security matter." More people arrived. Carlos heard voices, but they seemed far away. The pain in his chest was getting worse. He closed his eyes and thought about his wife Maria, waiting for him at home. He thought about his grandchildren, who would wonder why their grandfather did not come home for dinner. The last thing Carlos heard before everything went dark was Lisa Park's voice, clear and strong. "I saw everything. I will tell everyone what really happened here." Danny Brooks had been security chief on the New Horizon for 12 years. He had seen fights, thefts, and accidents, but nothing like this. He stood in the medical bay, looking down at Carlos Vega lying unconscious on the white bed. The old man's face was swollen and purple. His breathing was shallow and painful. Dr. Amy Stone checked the medical scanner again. Her face was grim. 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, and a concussion, she said. He might not wake up. Danny felt sick. He had known Jake Morrison for 8 years. They had worked together, eaten meals together, and Danny had trusted him. Now he had to arrest his own deputy for nearly killing an innocent man. "Is there anything else I should know?" Danny asked the doctor. "The damage is bad," Amy said. "Someone beat him like they wanted to kill him. This was not a fight. This was an attack on a helpless old man." Danny nodded and left the medical bay. In the hallway, Lisa Park waited for him. She looked pale and shaken, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Chief Brooks, I need to tell you exactly what I saw." Danny led her to his office. Lisa sat down and took a deep breath before she began to speak. "I was walking to the navigation center when I heard voices in Sector 7. Deputy Morrison was yelling at Carlos Vega. Morrison said terrible things about Carlos and his family. He called them not human. He said they were taking food and space from real people." Danny wrote down every word. "What happened next?" Carlos tried to explain that he was just fixing the air filter. He was very calm and polite. But Morrison got angrier. He shoved Carlos into the wall, then grabbed him and threatened to throw him out an airlock. Danny's hands tightened into fists. Threatening to kill someone by throwing them into space was the worst crime possible on a ship. Morrison threw Carlos to the floor and kicked him twice, Lisa continued. "I called for help, but Morrison lied. He said Carlos was sabotaging equipment. That is completely false. Carlos was fixing broken equipment, not breaking it." Danny finished writing and looked up at Lisa. "Are you willing to testify about this in front of the ship's council?" "Yes," Lisa said without hesitation. "Everyone needs to know what really happened." After Lisa left, Danny walked slowly to the detention center. Morrison sat in a small cell, staring at the wall. He looked up when Danny approached. "Danny, thank God you are here," Morrison said, standing up quickly. "I need to explain what happened. That old man was sabotaging life support. I caught him red-handed." Danny looked at his former friend with cold eyes. "Jake Morrison, you are under arrest for assault, attempted murder, and making false accusations. You have the right to remain silent." Morrison's face went white. "What? Danny, you know me. I would never hurt an innocent person. That man was a saboteur." "I have a witness who saw everything," Danny said. "Lisa Park watched you attack Carlos Vega for no reason except hate. She heard every word you said." Morrison's expression changed. The fake concern disappeared, replaced by anger. You are going to believe that girl over me? I have been your deputy for years. I believe the truth, Danny said. And the truth is that you nearly killed a 78-year-old man because you hate people who look different from you. Danny turned to leave, but Morrison called after him. You do not understand, Danny. This ship is not big enough for all of us. We need to think about the future, about what kind of people we want to build our new world. Danny stopped and turned back. What are you talking about? Morrison stepped closer to the bars of his cell. There are others who think like me. We have been talking, planning. The resources on this ship are limited. When we reach the new planet, we need to make sure the right people are in charge. A cold fear settled in Danny's stomach. How many others? Morrison smiled. But it was not a nice smile. More than you think. We have people in engineering, food service, even in navigation. We know which families use too much food, which ones have too many children, which ones do not belong. Danny realized this was bigger than one man's hate. This was a conspiracy. Who else is involved? Morrison laughed. You will find out soon. Enough. Carlos Vega was just the beginning. We are going to take control of this ship and make sure it goes to the right people. Danny left the detention center and went straight to Captain Henry Walsh's office. The captain was a quiet man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been leading the ship for 15 years. Captain, we have a serious problem, Danny said. He told the captain everything Lisa had seen and everything Morrison had said. Captain Walsh listened without interrupting. When Danny finished, the captain was quiet for a long time. How many people might be involved in this conspiracy? The captain finally asked. I do not know. Morrison said they have people in different departments. We need to investigate everyone. The captain nodded. Start with Morrison's closest friends. Check the security logs to see who he has been meeting with. And Danny, be careful who you trust. If this conspiracy is real, we do not know how far it reaches. Danny spent the next day investigating. He checked computer logs and talked to workers in different sections of the ship. What he found made him sick. Morrison and his followers had been causing problems for months. They had broken equipment in sections where minority families lived, then blamed the residents. They had reported false violations to get people in trouble. They had even tampered with food distribution to make it look like certain families were taking more than their share. The worst discovery came when Danny talked to Rachel Kim, a young engineer who worked in the power systems. She was scared, but she told Danny the truth. They have been planning to take control of the navigation systems, Rachel said in a whisper. They want to change course. Instead of going to the planet the whole ship chose, they want to find a different world, one where only certain people would be allowed to land. Danny felt like the floor was falling away beneath him. They want to abandon thousands of people in space? Rachel nodded. They think the ship is too crowded. They want to leave the people they do not like behind and start a new colony with only the families they approve of. Danny knew he had to act fast. He called an emergency meeting of all department heads. He told them about the conspiracy and asked them to watch for suspicious behavior. But as Danny looked around the room, he wondered who he could trust. Morrison had said there were conspirators everywhere. Some of the people in this room might be part of the plot to destroy thousands of innocent lives. In the medical bay, Carlos Vega still lay unconscious. His wife, Maria, sat beside his bed, holding his hand. Their children and grandchildren took turns visiting, hoping their father and grandfather would wake up. None of them knew that Carlos's beating was just the first step in a plan that could kill them all. Captain Henry Walsh stood alone in his private quarters, staring out the small window at the stars. The New Horizon had been traveling through space for 40 years, and he had never faced a crisis like this one. His ship was full of people who hated each other enough to kill. A soft chime sounded, and the air in the room began to shimmer. Walsh stepped back in surprise as 3 tall, crystal-like beings appeared before him. They were beautiful and strange, with bodies that seemed to be made of living glass that changed colors as they moved. "Do not be afraid, Captain Walsh," one of them said. The voice came from inside Walsh's head, not through his ears. "We are the Zephyrians. We have been watching your journey." Walsh's mouth fell open. In 40 years of space travel, humans had never met any other intelligent life. You have been watching us for how long? Since you left your homeworld, the Zephyrian answered. We watch all species that try to travel between the stars. Most fail this test. What test? Walsh asked. The three beings moved closer. Their crystal bodies pulsed with soft light. The test of unity. Every species must prove they can live together in peace before they are ready to meet others. Your species is failing this test. Walsh felt cold fear in his stomach. What happens if we fail? You will reach your destination planet, but you will be alone forever. No other species will contact you. You will never learn the secrets of faster travel or how to find other worlds. Your people will be trapped on one planet until they destroy themselves or learn to live together. The captain thought about Morrison and his conspirators. They wanted to abandon thousands of people in space. They wanted to start a new world with only the people they liked. This was exactly the kind of hate the Zephyrians were talking about. What do we need to do to pass this test? Walsh asked. That is not for us to decide, the Zephyrian said. Your people must choose. They must show they can overcome the hate that divides them. The old man who was beaten, his response will be very important. Carlos Vega? Is he going to live? We do not know. But if he lives, his words and actions will help determine your species' future. The Zephyrians began to fade away. We will watch and wait. The choice is yours to make. Walsh was alone again, but everything had changed. The fate of humanity depended on how they handled this crisis. 2 days later, Carlos Vega opened his eyes. His wife Maria was sitting beside his bed, and she cried with joy when she saw him awake. Carlos, my love, you are back with us, she whispered, squeezing his hand. Carlos tried to sit up, but pain shot through his ribs. He remembered everything. Morrison's angry face, the kicks, the terrible words about his family. Dr. Amy Stone checked his condition and smiled. You're going to be fine, Carlos. You are stronger than we thought. Within hours, news spread through the ship that Carlos was awake. People from every section came to visit him. They brought flowers, food, and cards made by children. Carlos was amazed to see so many different faces. Black, white, brown, Asian, mixed families, young and old. All of them were angry about what had happened to him. Tony Martinez, a young engineer who worked in the power section, organized meetings in different parts of the ship. People who had never talked to each other before started working together. They shared stories about Morrison and his followers. They talked about the broken equipment and false accusations they had suffered. We cannot let them divide us, Tony said at one meeting. This ship is our home, all of us together. Meanwhile, 16-year-old Nina White had an idea. She was one of the smartest students on the ship, and she loved making videos. She asked her friend Alex Johnson to help her create a special project. We should make a movie about our ship, Nina said. Show everyone how many different kinds of people live here and what they do to help everyone else. Alex liked the idea. They started interviewing people in different sections. They filmed Carlos's grandson fixing a water pump. They recorded Maria Vega teaching children to cook traditional Mexican food. They showed a Chinese family growing vegetables in the ship's gardens and an African family leading exercise classes in the recreation center. Nina and Alex discovered something wonderful. Every culture on the ship had something special to offer. The Indian families were the best at fixing electronic equipment. The Arabic families knew how to make the recycling systems work better. The European families were experts at organizing food storage. The African families were the best teachers and doctors. Look at this, Nina said, showing Alex their video footage. We are not just different groups of people living on the same ship. We are like one big family with different talents. Everyone helps everyone else. They finished their movie and asked Captain Walsh to show it to the whole ship. The captain agreed, and one evening everyone gathered in the main auditorium to watch. The movie showed scene after scene of people working together. It showed children of different colors playing together. It showed families sharing meals and celebrations. It showed workers helping each other fix broken equipment. At the end of the movie, Carlos Vega appeared on the screen. He was still weak from his injuries, but his voice was strong. I have lived on this ship for 40 years, he said. I have seen children grow up and become adults. I have seen people fall in love and start families. I have seen people help each other through hard times. Deputy Morrison hurt me because he thinks I am different from him. But I am not different. I am human, just like him. We are all human, and this ship is our home together. Carlos paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was full of emotion. Morrison thinks some people are worth more than others. But he is wrong. Every person on this ship is important. Every child, every adult, every old person like me. We all have something to give. We all deserve to live and to reach our new world. The auditorium was completely quiet. Many people were crying. I forgive Deputy Morrison, Carlos continued. He is afraid and angry, and that made him do terrible things. But I do not hate him. Hate is what caused this problem. Love is what will fix it. When the movie ended, something had changed on the ship. People who had been strangers started talking to each other. Families from different cultures began eating meals together. Children who spoke different languages taught each other new words. Captain Walsh felt hope for the first time in days. Maybe his people could pass the Zephyrians test after all. But in the detention center, Morrison and his followers were not giving up. They had been planning their takeover for months, and they were not going to let one old man's speech stop them. The real test was just beginning. The main courtroom on the New Horizon had never been so crowded. Every seat was filled, and people stood along the walls. Representatives from every section of the ship had come to watch Jake Morrison's trial. The Zephyrians watched invisibly, from the back of the room, their crystal forms hidden from human eyes. Judge Patricia Bell called the courtroom to order. She was a fair woman who had served as the ship's chief judge for 20 years. Morrison sat at the defendant's table with his lawyer, Paul Davis. On the other side, prosecutor Maria Santos prepared her case. Morrison looked different from the angry man who had beaten Carlos Vega. He wore a clean uniform and had combed his hair neatly. His face showed no emotion as he stared straight ahead. The defendant, Jake Morrison, is charged with assault, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit mutiny, and violation of the ship's unity laws, Judge Bell announced. How does the defendant plead? Paul Davis stood up. Not guilty on all charges, Your Honor. My client was doing his duty as a security officer when he discovered sabotage activities. Maria Santos shook her head. She had spent weeks preparing for this trial. She knew Morrison was guilty of terrible crimes, not just against Carlos Vega, but against the entire ship. The first witness was Lisa Park. She walked to the front of the courtroom with confident steps. Her voice was clear and strong as she told exactly what she had seen. Morrison called Carlos Vega and his family not human, Lisa said. He said they were taking food and space from real people. He threatened to throw Carlos out an airlock. Then he attacked a defenseless old man who was just trying to fix broken equipment. Paul Davis tried to make Lisa change her story. Officer Park, is it possible you misunderstood what you saw? Deputy Morrison was investigating potential sabotage. No, Lisa said firmly. I saw everything clearly. Carlos was fixing an air filter that was broken. Morrison attacked him because of hate, not because of any crime. The next witness was Rachel Kim, the engineer who had discovered Morrison's conspiracy. She was nervous, but she told the truth about the secret meetings and plans to take over the ship. Morrison and his group wanted to change the ship's course, Rachel said. They planned to abandon thousands of people in space and take only the families they approved of to the new planet. The courtroom erupted in angry voices. Judge Bell had to bang her gavel several times to restore order. Paul Davis stood up again. Your Honor, my client never acted on these alleged plans. He is being charged with thoughts, not actions. He beat an innocent man nearly to death, Maria Santos replied. That was an action. And the conspiracy was real. We have evidence of sabotage activities throughout the ship. The prosecution called witness after witness. Tony Martinez testified about equipment that had been deliberately broken in minority sections. Nina White showed video evidence of damage that could only have been caused by sabotage. Alex Johnson presented computer records showing that Morrison and his followers had been meeting secretly for months. When it was time for Morrison to testify, Paul Davis advised him to remain silent. But Morrison stood up anyway. "I want to tell my side of the story," Morrison said. Judge Bell warned him that anything he said could be used against him, but Morrison nodded. "I am not sorry for what I did," Morrison said, his voice getting louder. "This ship is dying because we are carrying too many useless people. My father died in the resource wars on Earth. He died fighting people who looked just like Carlos Vega. People who took what belonged to real humans." The courtroom was completely silent. Morrison continued, his face red with anger. "We left Earth to build a better world. But we brought the same problems with us. Too many mouths to feed. Too many people who do not belong. When we reach the new planet, we need to be strong. We need to be pure." "Pure?" Maria Santos asked. "What does that mean?" "It means people who built the ship should control the ship. People who look like the original colonists. People who speak the right language and follow the right customs." Judge Bell leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, are you saying that some humans are worth more than others?" "Yes," Morrison said without hesitation. "Some people contribute to society. Others are just parasites. Carlos Vega and his kind are parasites." At that moment, the courtroom doors opened. Carlos Vega walked slowly into the room, supported by his wife Maria. He was still weak from his injuries, but he had insisted on coming to the trial. Morrison's face went white when he saw the old man he had nearly killed. Carlos made his way to the witness stand. His voice was quiet, but everyone in the courtroom could hear him clearly. 43 years ago, I helped build the engine that powers this ship," Carlos said. "I was 25 years old then. I worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 2 years to make sure the engine would be perfect." He looked directly at Morrison. "My hands built the machine that has kept you alive for 40 years. My knowledge has fixed 1,000 problems that could have killed everyone on this ship. My children have grown up here and worked hard to keep everyone safe." Carlos paused, breathing carefully because of his broken ribs. "You say I am a parasite, Mr. Morrison. But I have given my whole life to this ship. I have never taken more than my share of anything. I have helped people of every color and background. I have taught young engineers, including some who look just like you." Morrison looked away, unable to meet Carlos's eyes. "You hurt me because you are afraid," Carlos continued. "You are afraid that there is not enough room for everyone. You are afraid that people who look different from you might be just as good as you are. But there is room for all of us. There is enough food, enough air, enough space. The only thing we do not have enough of is hate. And that is a good thing." Carlos stood up slowly, wincing from the pain. "I forgive you, Mr. Morrison. Not because what you did was right, but because forgiveness is the only way we can heal. We are all human beings on this ship together. We will reach our new world together, or we will fail together." The old man sat down, and the courtroom was completely silent for a long moment. The Zephyrians, still invisible, watched with great interest. One of them sent a thought to the others. This species may be worthy after all. The trial continued for 2 more days, but everyone knew the outcome. The jury, made up of people from every section of the ship, found Morrison guilty on all charges. But the real question remained: what would happen to Morrison, and what would happen to the ship? Judge Patricia Bell looked out at the packed courtroom. She had listened to all the evidence, heard all the witnesses, and now she had to decide Jake Morrison's fate. The entire ship waited for her decision. "Jake Morrison, you have been found guilty of assault, attempted murder, and conspiracy," Judge Bell said. "These crimes could be punished by life in prison or even exile from the ship. However, before I pass sentence, I must ask if anyone wishes to speak on your behalf." The courtroom was quiet. Morrison's friends had abandoned him after learning about his conspiracy. His fellow security officers refused to defend his actions. No one stood up to help him. Then Carlos Vega slowly rose from his seat. "Your Honor, I would like to speak," the old man said. Judge Bell looked surprised. "Mr. Vega, you are the victim in this case. You have the right to speak about punishment, but you do not need to defend the man who hurt you. I understand, Carlos said. But I have something important to say. Carlos walked carefully to the front of the courtroom. His ribs still hurt, and his face still showed bruises from Morrison's attack. Your Honor, Jake Morrison hurt me badly. He could have killed me. He wanted to abandon thousands of people in space, including my family. He deserves to be punished. Morrison stared at the floor, unable to look at the man he had beaten. But, Carlos continued, I do not think prison or exile will help anyone. Morrison is sick with hate. Prison will only make that hate grow stronger. If we throw him away, we become like him. We decide that some people are worth saving, and others are not. Judge Bell leaned forward. What do you suggest, Mr. Vega? Give him a chance to learn, Carlos said. Make him work with the people he hates. Make him see that we are all human. Make him help build our new world instead of trying to destroy it. The courtroom buzzed with surprised voices. Maria Santos, the prosecutor, looked shocked. Even Morrison raised his head to stare at Carlos. Judge Bell considered Carlos's words for a long moment. Then she spoke. Jake Morrison, you are sentenced to 10 years of supervised community service. You will work directly with the families and communities you tried to harm. You will help repair the damage you and your conspirators caused. You will learn about the people you called parasites. If you complete this service honestly and show real change, your record will be cleared. If you cause any more trouble, you will spend the rest of the journey in prison. Morrison stood up slowly. His voice was barely a whisper. Why would you do this for me? I tried to destroy you and your family. Carlos looked at him with sad but kind eyes. Because that is what families do. They help each other, even when someone makes terrible mistakes, and whether you like it or not, we are all family on this ship. As Morrison was led away to begin his service, the air in the courtroom began to shimmer. The Zephyrians appeared, visible to everyone for the first time. People gasped and pointed at the tall crystal beings. Some were frightened, but most were amazed by their beauty. The lead Zephyrian stepped forward and spoke, its voice reaching every mind in the room. People of the New Horizon, we are the Zephyrians. We have watched your journey and tested your species. Today, you have shown us something remarkable. Captain Walsh stood up. What have we shown you? You have shown that your species can choose love over hate, unity over division, and forgiveness over revenge. Carlos Vega could have demanded Morrison's death. Your people could have torn themselves apart with anger and fear. Instead, you chose to heal. The Zephyrian's crystal body pulsed with warm light. Your species has passed our test. We welcome you to the galactic community. The courtroom erupted in cheers and applause. People hugged each other and cried with joy. After 40 years alone in space, humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The Zephyrian continued speaking. We will give you new technology to help you build your colony. We will teach you how to travel between stars more quickly. Most importantly, we will introduce you to other peaceful species who share your values. Over the following months, the New Horizon changed completely. The Zephyrians shared their knowledge freely. They showed humans how to grow more food with less space. They taught new ways to recycle air and water. They even gave humans the secret of faster-than-light communication. Morrison began his community service in the section where Carlos Vega lived. At first, he was angry and resentful. He did his work poorly and complained constantly. But slowly, things changed. He met Carlos's grandchildren, who were polite and kind to him despite what he had done to their grandfather. He worked alongside people from different cultures and learned their skills. He ate meals with families who welcomed him even though they knew his history. One day, Morrison was helping repair a water pipe when it burst and flooded the corridor. An elderly Chinese woman named Mrs. Chang was caught in the flood and could not swim. Without thinking, Morrison jumped into the water and pulled her to safety. Thank you, Mrs. Chang said, holding Morrison's hand. You saved my life. Morrison looked into her grateful eyes and felt something he had not experienced in years. He felt useful. He felt human. 2 years later, the New Horizon reached its destination. The planet below was beautiful, with blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds. The Zephyrians had built a small city near the landing site, complete with advanced technology and comfortable homes. Carlos Vega, now 80 years old, was chosen to activate the first power grid on the new world. His hands, still steady despite his age, pressed the activation button. Lights came on across the settlement and the crowd cheered. Morrison stood in that crowd, no longer wearing a security uniform. He wore work clothes and carried tools. Next to him stood Mrs. Chang's grandson, a young engineer who had become Morrison's apprentice and friend. "Are you ready to help build our new world?" the young man asked. Morrison smiled, and for the first time in years, it was a real smile. "Yes," he said. "I am ready to help everyone build our new world." That evening, children played in the settlement's Central Plaza. They spoke many different languages and came from many different cultures, but they laughed and played together as one people. Above them, the Zephyrian ship sparkled in the alien sky, a symbol of friendship between species. In the distance, more ships approached, carrying representatives from dozens of peaceful worlds. Carlos Vega sat on his porch, watching the children play. His wife Maria brought him tea, and they sat together in comfortable silence. "We made it," Maria said quietly. "Yes," Carlos replied. "All of us together. We made it." A small plaque near the plaza bore simple words. "In our differences, we find strength. In our unity, we find the stars." Humanity had finally come home,